Have you ever stood on a subway platform late at night when the station is completely empty? You look down into the black mouth of the tunnel where the train is supposed to come from. It is pitch black. You can smell the rust and the damp earth. You feel a cold breeze hit your face, blowing from deep within the dark. You tell yourself it is just the wind from a passing train miles away. You tell yourself it is just air pressure. But what if it isn't? What if that breeze is the breath of something else? What if, standing there in the silence, you are not actually alone? What if something is standing just beyond the reach of the lights, looking back at you? Welcome to the hidden world beneath our feet. Most of us live our lives in the sun. We go to work, we walk the busy streets, and we sleep safely in our beds. We assume that the map of our city tells us the truth. We assume that below the pavement there are only pipes, wires, and dirt. But that is a lie. Every major city in the world sits on top of a graveyard of abandoned history. There are forgotten subway stations that haven't seen a passenger in 50 years. There are unfinished service tunnels. There are bunkers built for wars that never happened. For decades, the city officials have told us that these places are empty. They say they are just dangerous ruins filled with rats and dust. But recently, evidence has started to surface that changes everything. Whispers from urban explorers, leaked reports from city maintenance workers, and terrifying audio recordings that defy explanation. They all point to one impossible, chilling truth: we are not alone in this city. There is a secret society operating in the abandoned tunnels, a civilization that has rejected the surface world. They have their own laws, they have their own leaders, and most importantly, they do not like visitors. To understand why this is so terrifying, you first have to understand the sheer scale of the world down there. In the 1920s and 30s, cities were expanding faster than anyone could keep up with. They dug miles and miles of tunnels that were never used. Massive, cathedral-sized rooms made of concrete were built deep underground. But when the economy crashed, the construction stopped. The lights were turned off, the bricks were bricked up, the workers left, and the city above forgot they ever existed. On paper, these places do not exist. But urban explorers, people who break into these places for the thrill of the unknown, know the truth for years. They call it the Undercity. Usually, when you explore a storm drain or an old service tunnel, you expect to find trash, maybe some graffiti, maybe a lonely person looking for shelter from the cold. But starting around 5 years ago, the stories began to change. Explorers stopped reporting piles of trash. They started reporting order. They found tunnels that had been swept clean. They found strange symbols painted on the walls in fresh paint. They found electric lights strung up on the ceilings, illegally tapped into the city's main power grid. They found heavy steel doors that had been welded shut, but not from the outside. They were welded shut from the inside. Let me tell you about an account from an explorer who went by the name Apex. He was a legend on the deep web exploration forums until his account went completely silent 3 years ago. In his final post, he described a journey into the old postal tunnels, 4 miles beneath the surface. This area hadn't been on a city map since 1950. He expected total silence. He expected darkness. But then he heard a sound. It was the low, steady hum of a generator. He turned off his flashlight and crept forward in the dark, guiding himself by the wall. He turned a corner and found himself looking down into an old station platform.
But it wasn't empty. There were rows of wooden benches lined up perfectly. There was a podium at the front, and there were people, hundreds of them. They weren't speaking, they weren't moving, they were just sitting there, staring at the front of the room. They were wearing heavy clothes, gray and black rags that helped them blend into the shadows. Then a bell rang, a heavy iron sound that echoed through the stone chamber, and all of them stood up at the exact same time. Apex wrote that he stepped back in fear, and his boot crunched on a piece of broken glass. The sound was sharp and loud. Instantly, 200 heads turned to look at the dark corner where he was hiding. They didn't scream, they didn't run, they didn't look confused. They just stared. And then the lights went out. That was the last thing Apex ever wrote.
Is it just a ghost story? A creepypasta invented for the internet? Maybe, but he isn't the only one who has seen things. City utility workers are the people who fix the pipes and cables that keep our city running. They are usually afraid to speak because they could lose their jobs. But one anonymous worker sent a terrifying description of what he found under the financial district. He said that while fixing a steam pipe, he found a tunnel entrance marked with a strange symbol. It looked like an eye drawn inside a mechanical gear. He said the air coming from the tunnel was warm, unnaturally warm, and it smelled like cooking meat. When he shined his high-powered light down the shaft, he saw a makeshift barricade. It wasn't just a pile of junk. It was a wall made of old street signs and sharpened metal spikes built to keep people out. He shouted hello, thinking perhaps someone was hurt down there. A voice came back from the dark. It wasn't a shout, it was a whisper, so clear it sounded like it was right next to his ear, even though the tunnel was empty. The voice said only 5 words: go back or stay forever. He dropped his tools and ran. He refused to ever go back to that job site. So, who are they? Skeptics say these are just homeless communities. Sociologists call them mole people. And yes, it is true that many unfortunate people seek shelter underground because they have nowhere else to go. But what we're talking about here is different. Homeless encampments are usually chaotic. They are about survival. People come and go. The society in the tunnels is about permanence. They are building a future. They have a hierarchy. They have security. Explorers have reported seeing sentinels. These are men standing perfectly still at tunnel intersections, holding metal bars or heavy wrenches. They don't ask for change. They don't speak. They stand guard, watching the borders of their territory. They use a system of coded knocks on the pipes to communicate over long distances. If you are standing on the street above and you hear a rhythmic clang, clang, clang coming from a manhole cover, you might think it is just construction, but it might be a signal. They might be tracking your movement. They might be telling the others below that you are there. But the most disturbing theory is not about who they are. It is about what they are doing. Why hide? Why build a secret community in the pitch black? Some theorists believe they are preparing. They believe that the society below is waiting for the society above to collapse. They are hoarding supplies. They are stealing electricity. They are recruiting. Have you noticed how many people go missing in this city every year? Thousands of people vanish without a trace. No phone signal, no credit card usage. They are just gone. The police assume they left town or that something terrible happened to them in a river or a park. But what if they didn't leave the city? What if they just went down? There is a terrifying concept called the lure. Some explorers claim that the society uses traps to bring people in. They leave strange, interesting items near subway entrances to spark curiosity, or they create sounds that mimic a crying child or a distressed animal echoing from a vent. A kind-hearted person might lean in to help. They might step over the caution tape. They might take a few steps into the dark to see what is making that sound. And that's all it takes. Once you are in their territory, the laws of the surface do not apply. Down there are no cameras, there is no police, there is only the tunnel and the people who own it. We try to pretend this isn't real. We put on our noise-canceling headphones, we look at our phones, we ignore the dark gaps between the stations, but the evidence is mounting. Strange power surges in the electrical grid that engineers can't explain, the sound of digging beneath basements in residential neighborhoods, and the graffiti. Next time you're walking in the city, look at the walls near the ground. Look at the concrete supports under the bridges. You will see symbols, triangles, eyes, arrows pointing down. You think it is just random art, but it is a language. It marks the borders of their kingdom. It tells them where the water is. It tells them which houses are empty. So what should you do with this information? Nothing. If you value your safety, you do absolutely nothing. Do not go looking for the entrances. Do not try to find the hidden doors behind the janitor closets in the subway. And most importantly, never, ever listen to the whispers in the vents. Because the scary part isn't just that they're down there. The scary part is that they're growing. They're getting closer to the surface. One day, the tunnels won't be big enough to hold them anymore. You walk over them every single day. You sleep just a few yards above their heads. They can hear your footsteps. They can hear your conversations. They know everything about you, and you know nothing about them until the lights go out. Thank you for listening. If you are brave enough to explore the dark side of our world, make sure you follow for more. We dig deep into the mysteries they don't want you to know about. Stay in the light, watch your step, and remember, when you look into the abyss is also looking at you.